Hello, West Shore. I'm Grace Durfee, and I'll be your worship associate this morning. I am grateful to be part of West Shore because it's a spiritual home for all who are in sympathy with Unitarian Universalist principles and values, regardless of religious background, age, ability, race, ethnicity, gender identity, or sexual orientation. We strive to be anti-racial, anti-oppressive, and a multicultural community. We welcome you to embrace these values as well. A special welcome to newcomers. If you are here in person, be sure to stop by the Welcome Center out in the hallway. If you haven't already, and if you've joined via the YouTube live stream, our membership and engagement coordinator, Diane Alcorn, would love to reach out to you. Her contact info is being added to the chat as we speak. A special welcome to our guest speaker this morning, Cara Mia. Cara, who goes by the pronouns they and she, is a practicing witch and pagan, living on the Erie land now called Cleveland, Ohio. They have been making videos about modern paganism and witchcraft since 2008. Look for Cute Witch 772 on YouTube. They co-founded The Pagan Perspective in 2009, a collaborative channel featuring pagans from various paths and backgrounds. That's at YouTube, Pagan Perspective. Cara is part of the Reclaiming Tradition of Witchcraft, an inclusive, feminist, and anti-racist tradition, bridging the worlds of spirituality and social justice. They began a reclaiming community for Ohio a few years ago, and that group is now blossoming. Cara also enjoys educating the public at the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic in Cleveland's Old Brooklyn neighborhood. Please see the weekly e-news that is sent out by email on Fridays to learn about events and activities going on this week in our community. Several announcements that I want to highlight right now include your Jubilee Pledge team invites everybody to come to the Family Jubilee Pledge Brunch on March 20th in Baker Hall, following the service. Celebrate spring's arrival and share gratitude for the gifts of our predecessors and the hopes and dreams for West Shore, for our beloved community. The menu will be vegetarian and vegan friendly. And this will be our first community meal together in 2 years. And while the adults are enjoying that, the children will be in the chapel enjoying a 60-minute magic show by Cleveland's #1 kids magician, Ta-da. That's his stage name, Ta-da. Call the office or email your registration to Karen Kircher by March 15th to guarantee a place at the table. Or stop by the Jubilee table in the rotunda today to sign up. Also at 4 p.m. today, there's a concert right here by B. Neil Davis. And finally, we come with heavy hearts today to share the conclusion of a tragic story. In 2017, Khadijah Baker, just 25 years old, and the beloved daughter of recently deceased West Shore member Leah Bailey, and Khadijah's boyfriend, were murdered in an attempted robbery. The perpetrator was charged, and countless pre-trials took place during the past 4 years. Last week, we learned that there will be no trial. The defendant took a plea bargain and admitted guilt to 2 charges of involuntary manslaughter. He faces a 9-year prison sentence. We hoped and prayed for justice, but it feels today like that wasn't the outcome. We hold Khadijah's brother, family, and friends, as well as those of us who loved her mother, in our hearts and minds. We ask that you contact Gloria Beamer, Ministry Associate for the Justice and Outreach Council, if you'd like to know more about the church's current justice work. Kathy Strouser and Jillian Cook, members of our pastoral care team, will be in the rotunda following the service, should you want to talk. Again, welcome. We're glad you're here, and we're glad you made it on time, given that we had to move our clocks up last night.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be back here at West Shore. We're going to get this service started today the way that we might start a ritual in my tradition or many traditions of witchcraft. We're going to cast a circle. We call it casting a circle. It's actually a sphere. It's a protective, nurturing, warming container for our energy. And some of you who may be familiar with this concept may have heard that in some traditions, once a circle is cast, you are not supposed to cross over the boundary. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that that is not the type of circle we're going to be casting today. This circle, people can walk through. So if you have to leave the room, re-enter, if folks keep joining us, that's all fine. It's just going to add to the energy. We're all going to cast this circle together. I will lead it. If you would like to stand and turn to face the directions, you may. You can also absolutely do this sitting down. We've all been doing it on Zoom for the last couple of years. So I will sort of turn, but I want to make sure you can hear me as well. And I almost forgot to look up which direction north was, but this is north, right? Does that sound good? Okay. So gathering our energy to designate this space for our service today, we begin by sending that energy off to the north, and then we're going to pull it or draw our circle across and around to the east, casting this circle by the air that is our breath in the east, pulling around to the south by the fire of our bright spirit, moving around to the west, by the water that is our living blood, sweat, and tears, and finally back around to the north to complete the 4-direction circle by the earth that is our body. But we're not done yet. It's a sphere, right? So now up above our heads by all that is above and down below, all that is below, and to the center, which is the witch themselves, whether or not you identify as a witch, the magic maker themselves, change maker themselves, to the center, which is community, to the center, which unites us all. The circle is cast. We are between the worlds. What happens between the worlds changes all the worlds. Blessed be. Thank you. Grace will now join me in welcoming the elements.
Spirit of the East, spirit of air, of morning and springtime, be with us as the sun rises, in times of beginning, times of planting. Inspire us with the fresh breath of courage as we go forth into new adventures.
Spirit of the South, spirit of fire, of noontime and summer, be with us through the heat of the day and help us to be ever growing. Warm us with strength and energy for the work that awaits us.
Spirit of the West, spirit of water, of evening and autumn, be with us as the sun sets and help us to enjoy a rich harvest. Flow through us with a cooling, healing quietness and bring us peace.
Spirit of the North, spirit of earth, of nighttime and winter, Be with us in the darkness, in the time of gestation. Ground us in the wisdom of the changing seasons as we celebrate the spiraling journey of our lives.
Okay. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. And let us witness to the unity of our spirit by saying together our unison affirmation words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio su ley. Este es nuestro magnífico convenio. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
Remembering the journey of freedom, the land we are on was once another's. We mourn the legacies of oppression. Healing is our way forward. Joy is the birthright of all.
And now let us greet each other as feels mutually comfortable. And I'm going to get my mask for this. And now we turn to our first hymn of the day, Circle Round for Freedom, number 155. I invite you to hum along or sway. Please stand as you are willing and able. And if you might like to include in your greeting a wave at the folks at home participating via live stream, just turn around and wave at the camera. I'm told that the people at home really, really do wave back.
Around for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
There's a little witch in all of us. That's a well-known quote from Practical Magick, one of the books in Alice Hoffman's series about witches that I'm hooked on. But is this really true? To be perfectly honest, I have mixed feelings about this. There's a push-pull of both fascination and fear for me around witchcraft. The fear probably stems from knowing how witches were persecuted. Where I lived in North Andover, Massachusetts, which was about 30 minutes from Salem, nearly 200 women were tried in the 1600s. During the witch hunt, many didn't get a fair trial. One of the most unfair evaluations was something called the swimming test. As witches were believed to always float, an accused would be bound and tossed into a body of water. If you were innocent, you would sink and often drown. If you floated, that proved you were a witch and you'd be put to death. No wonder witches practiced in secrecy. Although I grew up with some positive examples of witches, such as Samantha with her spellbinding nose twitches in Bewitched, or Glenda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz, there have been far more negative portrayals of witches in the media. A classic example is the old hag with the whisker on her chin, dressed in black, riding a broomstick that we always see around Halloween. Images and references to bubbling cauldrons, curses, hexes, and black magic all contribute to a feeling of danger around witchcraft. It also leads to my hesitancy around calling myself a witch. Nonetheless, the fascination is undeniable. I have often joked that I was probably a midwife in a past life. And historically, midwives were witches. I used midwives for the birth of both of my sons and continued to use them for well-woman checkups for 20 years. I grow herbs, brew some of my own teas, and have many books about herbal remedies. One characteristic of witches is their intuition or sight, which contributes to their healing abilities. My intuition has always been strong, and as I move into becoming a crone or wise woman as I turn 60 this summer, I am learning to rely on it even more. Witches honor nature and the seasonal changes. Part of my becoming wiser has been learning to work with the moon's phases. I often didn't pay attention till the moon until I caught myself tossing and turning, only to realize it was a full moon. Now I find that life flows better if I honor the moon phases by being more social around a full moon. Don't we all get a little wild and crazy at that time? And then hibernate or cocoon around a new moon. For years, I've also been gardening with the moon. Just as the moon pulls tides, it also pulls more moisture into the ground at the time of the new and full moons, making those good times for planting seeds. Root crops, bulbs, and perennials are best planted right after the full moon because of the waning moonlight, whereas the increasing moonlight after a new moon supports the leaf growth of above-ground annual crops. I actually experimented once with planting broccoli, some at the recommended moon phase and some not, and gardening by the moon won out. I've also worked with some pagan ritual in some Cakes for the Queen of Heaven groups. Similar to how we began this service, we'd always start our meetings by casting the circle. Then we would do a welcoming ritual, passing a candle around the circle as we introduced ourselves and our maternal lineage. So I would say, for instance, I am Grace, daughter of Francis, daughter of Ethel, daughter of Eliza Jane. This always felt like such a beautiful way to show reverence for the divine feminine and our matriarchal heritage. When questioning if there really is a little witch in me, at first I thought, I don't do any spells or anything like that. But this week, as I chanted the 13th Tara mantra with my Sangha, with the purpose of ending war and removing obstacles, it dawned on me that the chant was essentially a spell, just under a different name. So, given all this mounting evidence, if you want to call me a witch, go ahead. I'll take that as a compliment.
Thank you, Grace. Practical Magic is one of my favorite movies, by the way, the movie based on the book that Grace mentioned. For our meditation today, I've chosen a reading from a book that I'll also mention later that is actually an invocation to the goddess Aradia. This was written by Phoenix LaFay. Phoenix is a reclaiming witch and has been one of my teachers. Aradia is sometimes called the first witch. The story goes, she is the daughter of the goddess Diana, who was sent to Earth in the 14th century to teach magic to commoners so they could regain their power and overthrow those who oppressed them. I invite you to listen to these words and notice how your body and spirit react to them, breathing through whatever comes. Aradia, 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 daughter of the heavens above and the earth below, I call you, bringer of witchcraft, singer of power, sower of magic, I call you. Guide me in the release of oppressive bondage, bondage of others and of my own. Show me the way back to myself, my witchcraft, my power, my divinity. Connect me with my inherent gifts, gifts of change, tenacity, and intuition. Aradia, 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 first witch, resistor, poisoner, magician, priestess, healer. I call you. May you walk with me in power. May you fight with me for freedom. May you hold me in compassion. Blessed be. Phoenix calls Aradia a goddess of witchcraft, power, and resistance. What could such a goddess offer to us at this time in our lives? What would you ask her? What could she teach us? Take a moment now to consider what it is that you would like to ask for and support in your lives, or something that you would like to share. This is now time to write down something that expresses your heart, a need, a hope, a hurt, something you're thankful for. Prayer cards are available in the pew in front of you. What you write will be held in confidence. If you request a follow-up, Reverend Makar or a member of the pastoral care team will contact you. Once you're done writing, hold on to your card. You'll place them in the offering basket when that goes around in just a minute. If you're at home and wish to participate, please share your thoughts with Reverend Makar directly via email. And we'll take a minute for us all to do this, and I will hold this space for you. Again, you will place these prayer cards in the offering basket when that goes around. For now, please hold them up high. These are the joys and sorrows of our hearts, which Reverend Makar will take into his meditations this week and pray for all that is our life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Now we welcome Judith Janes.
Good morning, everyone. I am Judith Janes, a member of the Jubilee Pledge team and a long-time member of West Shore. Where do I start? So many memories of West Shore come to mind, but first, a little history. It's more than 50 years since I first set foot in the old West Shore. I remember so well that long hall to Baker Hall with the classrooms on each side. The windows in those classrooms were single, metal framed and leaked air like crazy. Beyond Baker Hall were more classrooms in Shutty Hall. But now, thanks to members' annual pledges, legacy gifts, and major fundraising campaigns, we have this amazing building. I guess many of you will remember setting up chairs in Baker Hall and sitting very close to each other as the renovation took place. Today, it is your generous and ongoing support that keeps the staff and building functioning for not only our congregation, but community organizations to use and enjoy. Learning about West Shore those 50 years ago was a blessing, and dare I say, a revelation. Here was a church without creed or dogma that encourages and supports finding one's own spiritual path, whether or not one has a belief. I am amazed and awed by the time and talents of our members, the energy and time that goes into making sure this community has a building to be proud of and a staff that goes the extra mile. West Shore members go above and beyond to help make our world a better, more equitable place. Everywhere, there are talented and hard-working individuals and groups of people seeking to bring hope, justice, and community to both the local and the wider world. I'm especially proud that West Shore is a teaching church and the incredible and astounding interns we have hosted over the years. I hope in the not-too-distant future, West Shore will once again host an intern. I was honored and privileged to serve on the intern committee for our most recent intern, the wonderful, inspiring Michelle Ma. I love this community of people who support a wide diversity of causes and do my bit for the interdependent web of life by tending with help from a dedicated group of gardeners, the Pollinator Garden and the Parking Lot Islands, one of which, I should interject, is badly in need of loving care. Craft ministry members knit and crochet gift blankets for child dedications, lap robes, shawls, and shawls for ill members, chain scarves for the West Shore Allies Against Human Trafficking, and hats, scarves, and mittens for anyone who needs winter warmth. Over the years, I have met and got to know some remarkable people, enjoyed both fun and sorrowful times. As I stand here in this beautiful place, I am thankful for our founding members who had vision and foresight. I was fortunate to know Ruth Mennel, one of those members, a remarkable and lovely lady whose memory I treasure. To her and to all our founding members, a heartfelt and grateful thank you. May we, the inheritors of their legacy and vision, carry it forward into the future, always with the knowledge that there are members who are there for each other, a beloved community which offers friendship, support, and caring, not only in times of joy and happiness, but also of need and sadness. Finding a spiritual home more than 50 years ago that continues to sustain and support me is such a gift and blessing. Transitions and changes in life and how one reacts to them are often in my thoughts these days. Since this pandemic has caused such disarray in our lives, I wonder if this will ever be as it was. As we celebrate our Jubilee year, may we continue to support our future growth and well-being of this vibrant, caring community. I am making a generous pledge this year to do my part, and I ask you to do the same. Reverend McCarr has an article in this month's Shorelines entitled, "How Much Should I Pledge?" And if that's a question that's on your mind, please take a look at it. Thank you.
Hello again. Once again, my name is Cara. My pronouns are they, them, or she, her. I live on the land of the Erie, Seneca, Mississauga, and Kaskaskia. Online, people know me as CuteWitch772. As Grace mentioned earlier, I've been making videos about modern paganism and witchcraft for over a decade now. That's a really long time on the internet. I identify as a pagan, referring to pre-Christian, polytheistic, or animistic nature-based religion, which I spoke about a bit last time I was here at West Shore. More specifically, we could say neopagan or modern pagan, meaning my path aims to tune into the world and my life today more than trying to recreate anything from history. I also identify as a witch. It's a little more difficult to explain that one in one sentence, but the witchcraft I practice would be considered a modern pagan magico-religion, meaning it has all of those pagan characteristics and embraces the practice of magic. These words mean different things to different people. I could do this whole talk just explaining them, but I won't. Maybe next time. Today, I want to talk about the only specific tradition of witchcraft that I've ever felt called to actually becoming a part of. The tradition which I've now been learning and working within for about 7 years. It's called the Reclaiming Tradition of Witchcraft. And since you're not seeing this in writing, if you could imagine all of those with capital letters, capital R, capital T, capital W. Beginning in California in the late 1970s, reclaiming has grown to encompass thousands of witches in countries around the globe. For most of my 2 decades of practice, I have been what we in the pagan community refer to as a solitary practitioner. That means that most of my practice is done alone, not in a coven or any other type of group. Though people who have groups to work with also do a lot of solitary work as well, for most of my path, I've been truly solitary in the sense of not having a group or magical community with whom to practice and celebrate. There are probably at least as many traditions of witchcraft as there are denominations of other major world religions, if not more. But I hadn't felt called to any one of them enough to seek out teachers and attend regular meetings and such. I don't believe in just joining any old coven just to be in one, but rather that it needs to be a really great fit. In past decades, people had to join whatever coven they could in order to learn much. But thanks to books and the internet, people now have the opportunity to be more self-taught. I learned through books that were written by the elders of our new religious movement, and later also through the friends I made via the wonders of the internet, as well as personal experience and attending public events and rituals. I did some work in groups with people I met through pagan pride events and even other UU churches, but those were not long-term groups for me. Our views and approaches were similar enough to enjoy some time together, but I always wanted more, or something different. So I kept looking while continuing to work alone most of the time. Years ago, I met an older pagan couple through YouTube whose wisdom and experience I very much respected. Dancing Rabbit and Feather. They were part of the Pagan Perspective Collaborative channel that I have been running for, again, over a decade. Long time. At one point, I was talking to these two, and they asked me if I had heard of a tradition called reclaiming. I had not. They recommended a book they thought I would love. It's called The Spiral Dance, a rebirth of the ancient religion of the great goddess. It was published in 1979, on Halloween Day, by a woman called Starhawk. I had seen it on many recommended book lists. It's considered one of the most influential books about modern paganism and witchcraft, especially in the United States. But I hadn't read it. I picked it up the next time I saw a copy at the secondhand bookstore. But after reading the description on the back, I put it back on the shelf. I didn't really feel like it was the book for me. 2 or 3 years later, toward the end of college, I saw a copy of the book at the secondhand bookstore again. I picked it up, looked it over, and this time I thought, I'm ready. So I took it home and I started reading it. But I didn't really get into it until after I graduated and had more time to devote to really diving deeply into my path. The summer following my college graduation, it's not really much of an exaggeration to say everything changed. One of my favorite chants says, referring to the goddess, "She changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes." She changes everything she touches. Everything she touches changes. I really do think that's how it was for me. There is a clear reason why the spiral dance did not feel right to me at first, and then it did. At first, I thought the book wasn't right for me. But years later, I realized it was I who had not been ready for the book. Yet. The back of the book revealed that this wasn't just witchcraft and magic as I had been learning it and practicing it since I was 12. Not just about the goddess and the god and the cycles of nature. This witchcraft was political. An activist, feminist tradition purposefully blending the craft and social justice. As a teenager, these were things that my privilege prevented me from thinking applied to me. I thought of politics as stuffy old white men in suits. The way history was taught in my school partially explains this because we only learned about stuff that felt like it happened forever ago and nothing that was current. And I felt that it was all about those people making decisions that I mistakenly thought had nothing to do with me. And maybe they didn't as much when I was a kid and somebody else was responsible for my general well-being. I was not raised in a very politically active atmosphere. I grew up around a lot of people who didn't get into politics. I learned to repeat those words as a child. Now even the thought of saying them tastes sour on my tongue. In my later teen years and throughout college, I learned about a lot of things, including my relationship with my own personal identities, as female, as queer, as a member of a minority religious group. I am a queer pagan witch. That is a hella political statement. I was those things in high school too, but I had no connection between those things and politics until college. I learned that what is personal is political, and the political is personal. A friend of mine invited me to join him in going around campus to get signatures to prevent anti-LGBTQ+ legislation from passing in Ohio that year. And the LGBTQ+ student group joined groups around the country in organizing a walk across campus to protest society's continued connection of sexual assault to what the victim was wearing. People of all genders walked across campus in all varieties of clothing, from bikinis to fully covered bodysuits like snowsuits, to showcase that the clothes are not what matters. Those two things, canvassing for signatures and participating in an organized demonstration, were my first two obviously political acts, other than voting. And the funny thing is, I don't even think I realized those things as political at the time I was doing them. That's how far the "but I'm not political" stuff goes. I also attended my first gay pride parade in New York City in 2010 with some of my friends before I ever really knew the history of the Stonewall uprising that led to pride. I was slowly but surely coming to realize that decisions being made by other people absolutely had something to do with me and the people I loved and cared for. And I started to care about that in a conscious way. At that point, I picked up that copy of Spiral Dance, and I finally understood why some witches would choose to directly align their craft with their politics. At that point, it seemed absurd to me not to. I was so not in that place as a teenager, but Dancing Rabbit and Feather must have seen it in me and knew I'd figure it out. One definition of magic, given by Doreen Virtue, is the art of changing consciousness at will. Others may say the art of creating change in accordance with the will. Changing our consciousness, which, by the way, we do without the use of mind-altering substances, creates change in the way we interact with each other, how we treat ourselves, and the way we shape our communities. So either way you look at it, magic is for people who want to change the world. Since embracing my identity as a feminist, some people in the magical community online have tried to tell me that these two are separate things, that my work has always been about paganism and witchcraft, not about social justice or politics. But hasn't it? To me, it's impossible to see them as separate anymore. They were always connected. The work I had been doing for years, educating about paganism, helping to reduce prejudice against a minority religious community from both within and without, has always been political, even if I didn't name it as such. Speaking about the goddess along with the god, talking about wanting to save the forests and non-human animals, talking about loving people of the same gender as myself, all political. And I had been speaking about those things for years. I didn't know it was political. And apparently neither did a lot of the people who had been listening to and loving my thoughts on those topics. It was the same content. But when I started using that dreaded F word, feminist, suddenly some people weren't on board anymore. So I get it. I didn't make the connection for years. We have to unlearn things we've been taught in order to know the truth. One of my favorite quotes by Starhawk: "A witch's loyalty is to the truth before any ideologies or any comforting illusions." The idea that I didn't have anything to do with politics nor politics with me was a comforting illusion. Ignorance is bliss, but knowledge is power. So what I've started saying is this: magic is the art of creating change. If you don't want change, you don't do magic. I mean, probably, right? People who are totally content with their lives and the state of the world probably don't have any reason to learn about how to change things, whether that be by casting a spell or casting a vote. Obviously, I'm all about this now. But embracing this political reality was one of the major challenges that I had to overcome before a tradition like Reclaiming could make sense to me. Once I grasped that, it all fell into place. And I fell in love with Reclaiming as a community, and as an entire method of practice, as a tradition. I had never felt called to participate in a particular tradition before, and now I can't imagine my practice without it. One of the main things I love about Reclaiming now is that it is both feminist and environmentalist. The term eco-feminist refers to the idea that the way our society treats the earth is directly linked to the way it treats the feminine. Other world religions have had a big hand in influencing the way many people think of both of these things. Reclaiming was founded by feminist witches who were also active in the environmental movement. They followed a goddess-centered tradition and honored their connection with the earth, as do many modern pagan paths. Our beliefs and practices are rooted deep within the dirt and rock and soil, grounded in this planet on which we all live, human and non-human animals alike. And we celebrate the cycles of the sun, moon, and stars and the changing of the seasons. We acknowledge the land on which we work and play, and the indigenous people on whose land most of us remain guests. We hope to be good ones. Reclaiming also identifies as anarchist. While many people think of anarchy as disorder in the absence of authority, or chaos, in Reclaiming it's more about being non-hierarchical, having no top-down system of authority where a few people at the top have the most power and each tier below has more people with subsequently less power. There is structure and organization, but there is no single entity in authority. Rather, groups organize themselves and are accountable to each other. Paganism and witchcraft as a whole have no central governing authority and groups that are autonomous, but connected through shared beliefs, practices, or both. But Reclaiming, with its openly political stances and criticism of our current social power structures, is one of the few actively identifying itself as anarchist in this way. Another definition of anarchy is absolute freedom of the individual as a political ideal. In Reclaiming, we say, you are your own spiritual authority in community. We do emphasize the individual responsibility and authority of each witch to make their own decisions about what they need. But the community portion reminds us that our actions and choices do have an effect on those around us. Group process is used in reclaiming community, and decisions are made by consensus. In that regard, it goes beyond just democratic process. Regular tradition-wide gatherings are held to discuss matters that affect the tradition as a whole, but otherwise, individual groups make their own decisions for their own local community. Something that affects the whole tradition is updating the Principles of Unity, a document that states our shared values as a tradition. Originally written and consented in 1997, the language surrounding gender was updated in 2012 to reflect that we honor and recognize much more than a simple binary for both ourselves as humans and for representations of the divine. We also introduce ourselves along with our pronouns every time we get together. Everyone does it, not just people whose pronouns are different from whatever's assumed to be the norm. The Principles of Unity were updated again just recently, in 2021, to explicitly state that we are an anti-racist tradition and strive to center and uplift the voices of our BIPOC members. BIPOC, B-I-P-O-C, you may already know, stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. Big tradition-wide discussions like that have been made easier by using online video calls instead of having to travel to be together in person for these long, drawn-out discussions and meetings. Another shout out to the folks watching at home. Online video has made so much more connection possible. The local community I've been helping grow here in Ohio had its first community meeting earlier this year to discuss a general schedule for the coming year and establish some housekeeping things like who was going to help me answer emails, who would moderate social media comments, and whose turn is it to pay for the Zoom Premium account. The glamorous life of community organizing. Power and responsibility of leadership is also shared and rotated. Every reclaiming class or workshop is meant to be taught by 2 or more teachers working together to model that no one person has all the answers. There are core classes that are offered so that communities learn a foundation of common tools and practices, and teachers are trained by working with other experienced teachers as mentors first. This is something I've been doing for the past few years, becoming a teacher myself. Then from that common ground, many paths emerge. Everything has a personal touch and is co-created by the groups, classes, and communities for their own needs. No one knows the needs of a community better than the people who are actually in it, living it, every day. No 2 classes are alike because the teachers bring their own spin, and so do the students. Another thing I've loved about being in reclaiming community spaces is that they operate within a culture of consent. This means we ask permission and get clear, informed, and uncoerced consent for everything. We ask for a hug and learn to be okay if the answer is no. Instead of automatically handing someone a tissue if they're crying, because our culture has taught us to suppress emotional displays, we ask what, if anything, a person might need in that moment. If they want a tissue, they're empowered to ask for it. Or we can ask, or say something like, let me know if you'd like a tissue. But we don't make the decision of what that person needs for them. We don't give advice without asking if it's welcome or first being asked to give it. It's very common to hear questions like, would you like advice or for me to just listen? A lot of people don't even know what they'd actually like for support because for most of our lives, we aren't given a choice. If you didn't have to accept a hug from every person who came at you, arms open, would you want all of those hugs? Always? Never? Would it depend on the situation? I often love a hug, but there are certainly moments that I don't want to be touched. Sometimes I want a hug from a close friend, but maybe not from just anyone in the room. I might want a hug, but not appreciate being picked up and swung around in a circle. That happens to me a lot. I'm small. But consenting to a hug is not the same as consenting to being swung around or anything else that a person might do when they hear permission to hug as permission to touch you. I love using hugs as my example of consent culture because so many people think, what's the big deal? It's just a hug. I'm not going to ask if I can do that. That's weird. But a hug is not always as simple as people think. And if we can't even ask for a hug, how can we ask for anything else? So I also love Reclaiming because we work with establishing and respecting boundaries, both in our magical work and in our personal lives. I know what to expect in reclaiming spaces, and especially in situations regarding trauma, consent-based spaces are safer spaces for many. In more direct terms of justice of all kinds, it's not uncommon to see reclaiming groups holding ritual or doing magic on behalf of a cause, to support a political action, or to send healing to parts of the world in need. In 2015, I was at my first witch camp, a week-long intensive workshop and ritual training within the tradition, when we learned of the attacks in Paris, France. We didn't learn until later that there had also been attacks in Beirut, Lebanon, which had gotten less media coverage. At the time, we only knew about Paris, so that evening's ritual was immediately adjusted to include sending protective and healing energy to the city. When I got home, Witches Online had posted asking for people to do more protective and healing magic at a given time, all at the same time, toward the same goal. A few years ago, when the media first let us all know that the Amazon rainforest had been burning for weeks, and we learned that it actually does that a lot more often than they tell us, the reclaiming community in Brazil posted a simple ritual that others could participate in. This one didn't have a set date or time, but rather an ask to continue the magic for as long as we can, as often as we can. All of us using the same symbol as a focal point and using the same basic setup. A bowl of water to encourage the rains, placed on top of the magical symbol that was created for the cause, which was then drawn onto a map of Brazil and the Amazon rainforest, or just a circle on paper with the words Amazon rainforest written in them to represent where we wanted our energy to go. For my ritual, I traced a line map of South America off the computer screen onto some scrap paper. I shared the post from Reclaiming Brazil all over social media, everywhere I could. Anyone can do magic, and this is a cause that affects the entire planet, so I thought it was a good idea to get as many people involved as possible. In 2020, a collective magic ritual was created for the protection of Black people. It was an ongoing spell where participants used the same basic ingredients and intention, kind of like the rainforest one. It is a spell that I continue semi-regularly to this day. And now, witches and other practitioners of magic worldwide are doing magic using sunflower seeds and blue and yellow candles to protect the people of Ukraine. Reclaiming is the only tradition with which I've felt a true sense of community, and that community is global. I feel like part of something larger, even though most of the people I know within the tradition are scattered all around the planet. The threads of this web are strong, and the roots run deep. Knowing that all around the world, people are working together toward the same goal helps us not feel so isolated and alone in our work, even if we typically work as solitaries. This type of communal ritual created for global intentions is incredible to me for that reason, that anyone can join in and be part of something larger than any one of us could accomplish alone. That's what community organizing and activism has always been about. So it isn't surprising that this beautiful, connected feeling should come from a tradition that was created by activists who met while marching and demonstrating together against the war and against nuclear weapons, and did magic to sustain their own energy, prevent burnout, and to heal themselves and the world. And that's the kind of thing reclaiming witches do. In addition to writing letters or calling our local government representatives, in addition to voting and attending protests and marches and rallies, we do magic. And the great thing about that is anyone can do it. The notion of combining magical practice with social justice work is becoming even more popular today. A great little book came out in 2019 called Witchcraft Activism, a Toolkit for Magical Resistance by David Salisbury. Another one I love is this small anthology from 2018, which I read from earlier. This is The New Aradia, A Witch's Handbook to Magical Resistance, edited by Laura Tempest Zakroff. A few reclaiming witches contributed to this. I will happily remind anyone of those titles later if you're interested. They include everything from magical symbols to add to your protest signs, to invocations of deities of justice and action, to essays about the importance of recharging spiritually and the support of community to prevent burnout. Some people think that doing magic isn't enough. Another witch responded to my sharing the rainforest protection ritual by telling me that if that's all I was doing, I wasn't really doing anything, because magic wouldn't do anything. We tend to look down on those who see tragedy and simply respond with thoughts and prayers, but don't back it up with actually changing whatever caused the issue. So, we vote, and we light the candle. We sign the petition, and we send energy. We share information with our communities, and write an empowering chant about justice. Witches and other practitioners of magic see ritual as far more than an empty gesture or a request that God handle an issue so that we don't have to do anything about it. Pagans generally put a huge emphasis on personal responsibility. If we want something to change, we have to do something to show the universe that we mean it. Magic takes effort, it takes energy, and it typically only works, as I mentioned earlier, in accordance with our will, which means we have to really want something to happen. We have to will it to occur. It cannot be an empty gesture, or it simply won't work. You can't just go through the motions. You have to give it your all. And if magic is the art of creating change, why would we not use it in addition to the other more mundane tactics in order to help create the change we want to see? If we don't believe it works, why are we doing it at all? The witch who told me magic wouldn't do anything is someone who practices magic. It seems odd to me to do magic all the time, and then when faced with something you really care about, start saying, oh, this doesn't do anything. If you say to the universe, oh, this doesn't really do anything, I would not be surprised if your magic doesn't work, because you don't believe it will. You don't really expect it to do anything, so why should it? If we believe it works, we have to give it the chance to work. And there's some work we need to do in order to get it there. For one, we need to believe in ourselves and our power to create change. The world doesn't change just because we told the goddess we'd really like it to. The world changes when we change, when we all create change. What happens between the worlds changes all the worlds. May it always be for the better, and may we find ways to create the world we want to see together. So mote it be. That means may it be so. And now, please stand if you are willing and able for our next hymn, number 134, Our World is One World.
Our world is one world. What touches one affects us all. The seas that wash us round about, the clouds that cover us, the rains that fall. Our world is one world. The thoughts we think affect us all. The way we build our attitudes, with love or hate we make a bridge or wall. Our world is one world. Its ways of wealth affect us all. The way we spend, the way we share, who are the rich or poor, who stand or fall. our world is one world, just like a sheep that bears us all, where fear and greed make many holes, but where our hearts can hear a different call.
Thank you all for bearing with us today with our time. Our time in sacred space is coming to a close. But before we can just get up and leave and go to coffee hour, we have to complete the process by doing a few of the steps we used to create our sacred space in reverse order, to get things back to normal here at West Shore. We cast the circle, welcomed the elements, and lit the chalice. So to end, we will extinguish the chalice, thank and release the elements, and open the circle. However, I also called Aradia with that meditation invocation. So first we must let her go. Thank you, Aradia, for joining us here in our service and lending your support and guidance. Hail and farewell. Blessed be Aradia.
And if you're at home with a chalice, bring your chalice close to extinguish it as we extinguish it here. We extinguish our flames, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again.
Spirit of the North, be with us always.
Spirit of the West, be with us always.
Spirit of the South, be with us always.
Spirit of the East, be with us always.
Blessed be. Thank you and farewell to the elements. And now our circle has been the container for this work. We have been held within its protective and nurturing boundary which we created together. So we end by opening the circle, releasing it. We must begin where we ended. So beginning in the center, recall that circle and the energy that you sent out and the places of you that are connected to this community circle. And begin to wind it back up like a ball of yarn. Like you're going back through the labyrinth, following your string back out to find your way, pulling it back up from the bottom, pulling back down from the top, reaching back to the north, winding that energy back up, bringing it back into you, recalling what is yours back to your body, back to your spirit, and back, and holding it close. You can do one of two things with this. You can place this into your heart or anywhere else on your body you would like a little bit of extra energy today, or we can toss it up to the sky and send it out to the universe for the next time we need it in the future. It's up to you. But now we say thank you and goodbye. Thank you, circle. The circle is open, but unbroken. May the peace of the God and Goddess go with us in our hearts. Merry did we meet, merry did we part, and merry shall we meet again. Remember, coffee hour starts at 11:30, which is very soon. I'll see you at coffee hour in just a few minutes, and I will see you at the sermon chat at 12:30 on Zoom. For a brief benediction, last time I was here, I struggled to remember the words to a blessing chant because I was trying to speak it when I usually sing it. So this time I'm just going to sing it. The words of this blessing chant were written by Scott Cunningham, and the tune is by me. May the powers of the One, source of all creation, all-pervasive, omnipotent, eternal. May the goddess, the lady of the moon, and the god-horned hunter of the sun, may the powers of the spirits, of the stones, rulers of the elemental realms, may the powers of the stars above and the earth below bless this place and this time and I who am with you. Blessed be. Thank you. And so mote it be.